Let's take a look at testing our application. So this video is actually going to apply to any website, not just the ones built with PHPixie, since we are not going to use any framework-specific tools. Actually, when it comes to tools, there are a lot of those available for testing, but since I'm going to start with acceptance testing, which is testing how your actual website works, not just a part of it, it narrows the field slightly. And after some careful consideration, I decided to select Codeception for this video, but the same techniques can be applied to any other acceptance testing framework out there, such as Behead maybe. So the first thing that we need to do is get our website running. So for this tutorial, I just set up the demo to do project that we have on our PHPixie repository, which is just a small to-do project where you can create tasks and stuff like that. It's very simple. So before we start testing, we have to know what it actually does. So let me just quickly run you through it. So let's say I create a project Pixie. I add a project. Oh, come on, computer, be faster. All right. So now I add tasks, task 1, and I add the task. So here's my first task. Here I can add more tasks, and now my front page looks like this. So I'll actually keep these open, the tabs, since those are going to be helpful later on when we are going to do the testing, the automatic testing. But first, let's install Codeception. That is super easy. All you have to do is download, go to this link, the install one, and download Codeception as a FAR file, which I already have downloaded, and it's located in my D concept FAR. Now, the next thing we want to do is initialize Codeception within our project, and that is just creating a small directory structure and a configuration file. Now, since I don't want all of that in the root of my project, I'm going to go and create a directory inside the project. So I'm just going to call it Codeception, and I'm going to go to that folder. CD Codeception. All right, so let's take a look at the code. So here is our demo file structure, and here is the empty Codeception folder, and here I'm inside that folder. So now I'm going to go php d con concept var bootstrap. So, and this is where it actually begins. So I am just generating some basic files, and we can see them here. So there is Codeception UML. There is some data where we can have the SQL dumps and all of that. So let's take a look at some of this and start modifying it best for our purpose. So the first thing you will see is the Codeception UML. And the interesting part is the database configuration. You can put your database credentials here and have a dump file that it is going to import into that database before any test is run. So if you're testing a website that relies on some large amount of data already being present, like maybe a set of categories being there, a set of tags, you can have that dump being imported. But we don't really need that because I'll be just creating and deleting projects within the test, so I actually don't need the dump. Now, let's go and see the folder structure. So here you can see there is acceptance folder, functional folder, and unit folder. So this is for these 3 kinds of tests. So we are going to start with acceptance ones. All right. So now let's go ahead and generate our first acceptance test, which is going to be PHP Codeception var generate sept. Sept is like a single test. We will take a look at this later, and I will just call it that acceptance test homepage. Codeception var, sorry. Homepage, and it's going to be in my acceptance. Alright, so Codeception generate the sept double.sept acceptance homepage. All right, and now it created a simple file here-ish, and I want to access. So this is what we are going to use here just to define what we want to do. But first, we have to tell Codeception where our website is located. So to do that, we go to not Bootstrap, acceptance suite UML, this configuration file. And here we have to set the URL. So I have it under WordPress local. So that is what I'm going to type here, WordPress.local. So it knows where to go and look for the website. So now, let's say the want to is just for the output. So let's say I want to make sure front page loads. All right. Now let me take a quick look at their API because I don't really know it by heart. I think I'm looking for I'm on page. Yes. All right. That is exactly what I was. So $I am on page slash, and when I am on page slash, to make sure to ensure that the website works, what do I have to see? So let's say this is the front page for WordPress local. So I want somewhere to see to be able to see PHPixie to do. All right. So that is going to be the PHPixie to do text. Let's see, $I see PHPixie to do. All right, and now we can run the test. Codeception PHPixie file run. All right, the test passed. Oh, actually, I have to increase the window a bit, so so it looks a bit nicer. Oh, still a bit. All right. So it goes to the home page, and actually, to get some better output, you should use the ---- steps parameter, which actually tells you what it is going to do. So it says I am on page slash and I see PHPixie to do. And all that happened, so the test passed. Now, this is all very simple, but now we want to have some more PHPixie related stuff in it. So for example, the ability to access some components from PHPixie. We're going to do this in a while, but first, well, personally, I don't really like this sept structure because it looks like a template file with just imperative comments here and there, and I think this can grow with time like a lot. And there may be a lot of small parts that we can that you might be able to reuse. So I think it's better to use a class structure, and actually the Codeception supports that. So now let's generate a sest, which is exactly the same thing, except it's class-like, unlike just a flat file. So I'm going to generate sest acceptance, and I'm just going to call it project, because I'm going to be testing like project-related stuff here, like creating project and remove and adding tasks to it. So I'm just going to name it this. All right, so this is a project sest now. So this file is very similar to the sept, except that here we could only have one test in the entire file. Here we can have multiple tests, and each public function like this is a test. So in fact, let us just copy all of this, put it here. All right, and I'm going to remove the old sept file, which you don't really need anymore. Close and save. And now we have the project sest. All right, so try to visit front page. All right, I want to, and the before and the after are the same things as in PHPixie version 2. And if you look closely at this file, it will just going to remind you of either a PHP unit test or a controller that has stuff before, after, and the actual action that's being executed. So let us go ahead and run it. And push it. Everything prepared. So now we have this nice class-like structure. So the only thing left to add before we go is hook up PHPixie here so we can use some components from there. So to do this, we go to support helper, and here are some helpers where we can add methods. And any method we add to a helper is going to become a possible method to be used inside the sest and sept files on the $I. So now let's go ahead. So the first thing I would want is to get an instance of the actual framework here. So I'm going to create protected, and actually I'm going to create it static. So just in case it doesn't create it every time if this class is reinitialized. So protected static framework, public function framework, if if static dollar framework is null, then static framework equals new. So here we have to put the file, the class name of our framework of the framework inside a project. So if you're using this default PHPixie project layout, it has project framework class. And then here you would also obviously have to return static framework. So basically when this method is called, if the framework instance has not yet been created, it's going to be created, and then it's going to be returned. So let's add some useful functions. So let's say components. So return $less framework builder components. All right, and that's actually all this has to be protected because this is just for internal use. And let's add one more protected function to access the ORM, because this is what we are going to be accessing the most. So return $this components ORM. All right. So this is just a basic layout, so just so we have access. And now let's add the first method here is going to be remove a project, because what we're going to do in the next test is create a project entirely through the web interface, and then we will want to remove it. So I will add a public function remove project $ID $this RM query project in $ID delete. So the demo to do project is set up in a way that when the project gets deleted, all the tasks also get deleted, so you don't have to care about that. But otherwise you would just have a bigger helper, or you could actually from here gain access to your bundles and use any class inside your bundle. So now this is just all of this is just a helper, and from here we're just going to be using the remove project function later on. So now let's go back to our project test and create the next test. Let me just copy this line. So we are going to go and try to create a new project. So I want to create this one. I want to create a new project. Create a new project. I am on page slash. Now what do I do? So the first thing, I have to fill this field at the project name. So let's take a look at what the field's called. It's called name here. So I'm going to just type it here. $I fill field name with Pixie. Alright, actually let's call it so Trixie, so not everything is Trixie. Alright, so after I fill this field, I want to click the button to submit the form. So here I'm going to take a look now at the button, and this supports selectors, so I could just say click btn primary, like this, but it's not very readable, and so actually you can just use the text, like add project. But using text, you have to be careful to use the exact text. So for example, if you look here on the actual page, if I used some CSS transformation to call this button like in all uppercase, and then I would fill the form with all uppercase, it would not fill the text with all uppercase, it would not work, because it's using a regular PHP browser, so it's not really parsing the CSS nor JavaScript files. So you have to stick with how the actual HTML looks like. So after it filled the project, what do I want to see? I want to obviously see that you know I am on the project that I created. So here is the name of the current project that I'm viewing, and it is inside an H4. You can see. So then I tell it that I want to see Trixie. I want to see Trixie, but not just anywhere on the page, but in the H4 element. So if you had a class, probably class would look better here. But so now that I see Trixie in H4, that and another thing, before I deem my task completed, here is the span that says how many tasks the project has and how many of those are done. And I want to make sure that for new project it says 0, 0. So I'm just going to use selectors here and say that I want to see 0 in a selector tasks done, none, and a selector tasks total, actually tasks or tasks. I also want to see 0. So now the project will be created, and we could continue. But as with PHP unit, I actually like having tests that clean after themselves. It's not always possible, especially with bigger projects, but I wanted to show you some of the more advanced features and the helpers. So in this case, we are going to actually clean up after ourselves and delete the project so that we don't clutter like every time we run. So to delete the project, we have to know its ID, and to get the ID, we have to grab it from the URL. So you see it here, WordPress project UID. So this is I'm going to actually, and there are other ways of getting to know the ID. I could get it from the form hidden field, but I'm just going grab from current URL. I think that's correct. I'll have to take a look. But let's try. So I want to find the view, then goes the slash, then there can be a number, and this is just a regular regex d plus, and then there might or might not be a slash, and that's where the thing ends. and I will call this ID. And then I want remove project ID. So let's run it. Oh, I broke something. Cannot redeclare. Try to create a project. So I'm on page slash. Yes, fill, click add project, remove. All right, so the only thing that failed is removing. All right, and by the way, before we fix this issue, because it's very simple, look here. It says I remove project 2. So see, just from the name of the method that we specified here, it already nicely formatted it and said like I remove project 2, so that you can actually see everything what's going on. Now the error here is that I did not include the composer autoloader, which is important. So we go to our acceptance bootstrap file. Next we can go over here to the global bootstrap file, and here we have to include the autoload JSON, autoload PHP file from composer. So this is going to be require once. Actually, I think require would suffice. Require there. So now we have to go twice up. Vendor autoload PHP. Now that should work better. Great. So you see, it created the project, it removed the project, it cleaned up after itself. So, and so if you run this test multiple times, it's going to pass still. You can, as I said, you can achieve the same clean up behavior without like doing this manually. And in case of like users and some complex structure, it's probably going to be impossible. So you can just have the dump files in your Codeception UML is just going to include. So let's continue on. Now that we have this thing, I think a very important part is never to test things twice. So because then if you change some part of your system, you have to also change it in the two tests. So now that we are going to be trying and adding tasks. And I think it's very important that we don't do it in a test similar to this, where we create a project from scratch, click add project, and do all of that, because then if the test gets, if test creation changes, we have to change into places. So instead, what we are going to do is go to our acceptance helper and create another public function, is create project. This is going to be a method that is going to create a project with a specified name and return it, so that the test can use it. This way we are skipping the entire part of talking to the UI for the project creation and can just continue with what we need. So this is going to be create entity project. Well, our project equals create entity project. Project name equals $name, and we'll save it and return it. All right, so let us go and create a new test here. We'll call it try to add tasks. Add tasks. I want to add tasks to project. Add tasks to a project. So $I create project. I have Trixie. I can stick with Trixie actually. Let's just stick with Trixie, and that is our project. Now I want to go. I am on page/view. Project ID. This is /u or /project u. Wait, project. So I'm on page/project view, project ID. All right. So what I want to do here now is I want to fill in this form, which I think is entirely similar. Yes, it's also name. So I am just going to call it task 1. All right, task 1 is boring. I will say like buy books, and then I'm going to click add task. All right, and then I'm going to obviously add another task since I can. So I am going to then click fill field, click buy books, and then walk the dog. All right, add task. So now we have added 4 tasks. Now the assertions come. So I still want to see the Trixie in H4. So I want to know that add task actually redirects me to a proper page. Now tasks done is still 0 and tasks total is 2. And then I want to remove the project. So I could actually just call delete on the entity, but I don't really like using entity methods in the tests, like that are not in the helper. And so I'm just going to do like this, remove project. $project ID. And yes, if you're really lazy, you could just call project delete, and it would do the exact same thing. But remove project is going to add some nice flavor text. So now let's run it. I'm on page / I see PHPixie to do. I'm on page / I blah de blah. Everything passed. Add tasks 1, add tasks 2, and bang, something died. Call to what? How is remove project? It's not on this, it's on I. And actually, it's good that it died. I'll actually have at the time, because since we added 2 tasks, we actually want to assert that those tasks are displayed. Oh, unlock. All right. So to check that the tasks are displayed, I want to see 2 more things. So I want to see that there is actually the class tasks. That should work. I want to see in the task something with the class task that has buy books. Buy books, and something here that says walk the dog. All right, let's go. I'm on blah de blah. I click add project, done. I click add task. I click add task. Yes, and it passed. So now the value of this, wait. Alright, I'll have to rerun it. Now the value of this is that instead of, if you have the appropriate amount of helper methods defined, you can just write your tests and assertions with real-life language that you can later easily reuse. So for example, here it says, you see, I create project, I'm on page, and when something fails, you can definitely see which part of test failed. So for example, some things that could have been refactored here is instead of having IC0 in tasks done and IC total in tasks done, I could have a method saying like I assert that the task is done is 0 0, which I would just pass parameters like maybe like this, you know. Let's see, $I check tasks, so zero done and true total, maybe something like that, maybe you know, something depending on your scenario, but the basic idea is this. So I think this tutorial boils down to actually just showing you how to register a helper. And here, so Codeception actually features some already made helpers for other frameworks, not for PHPixie, sadly. But I took a look at those, and it's not really something that you would be missing a lot. I mean, you can pretty much do all the same thing with just a few bunch of helper methods. I hope you enjoyed this. And one more thing. So since it's using the PHP driver, it is not going to be possible to have some things like, say, well, pressing JavaScript buttons is obviously out of the question, since like this is an AX thing and this is an AJAX thing, so you won't be able to test it just by clicking on it. You would be able to test it by just saying that, you know, I visit the URL of whatever the AX function calls with these parameters, but this is obviously not that elegant. So the other option you have is Selenium, because Codeception supports that. You can use Selenium with it, but then it doesn't run like a headless browser. It actually runs like an actual browser, and it's much slower since all the page has to be rendered. So you have to just make the trade-off of whether you want to be able to use JavaScript enabled features to test JavaScript features on your website, like pressing a button, or not. So, and actually, if you want deeper support for JavaScript, you might actually go full on Phantom.js, which is faster than Selenium since it doesn't require a browser head, so it doesn't require an actual browser to run, but then you have to pretty much code it in JavaScript, and you'd have no simple API of talking to the actual framework. The only way that you could actually get around with Phantom.js is being able to call like an external command that calls an action on your framework to create a project or delete a project, but that communication is also going to slow you down. So all of these tests, and actually acceptance tests in particular, have a lot of trade-off between the amount of what you can test and the time that is required for the tests to run. And actually, test performance is an important subject, since if your test suite is going to require an hour or longer to run, it's going to be way harder to find and find bugs later on, especially if you're using continuous integration and it has to run all the tests before they go to production. So now you have an hour of delay. So I think the PHP browser, like it has, which just goes to the HTML page and asks it, is a great in terms of trade-off, because it's really fast since it doesn't need to actually parse the page, and all the things that are AJAXy you can do with Phantom.js separately again. So I hope you like it, the video, and I'll probably be doing some more of testing related stuff later on. Bye bye.